taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Honda CR-V. In this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the steering wheel and the cluster. The first thing is that the steering wheel may be heated inside of your ride, and you can turn that on or off along the very bottom of the wheel. It's also going to be manual telescoping. So by your left knee, there's a release. You're going to go in, out, up and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. Now this one isn't related to the steering wheel, but there may also be the option for seat memory. So you're going to get your driver's seat set up the way that you'd like to, push set, and then either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. So if there are multiple people driving the vehicle, get that set up and then just push 1 or 2 for it to reset back to your position. And then so many different options for the buttons and stocks. So you've got your lighting options along the left-hand side. So you can adjust what light mode that you're in. So you can toggle your lights off, go into an auto mode, or your headlamp mode as well. There is the option for auto high beams inside of the infotainment system when you get into your vehicle settings. So you've got vehicle settings for lighting with auto high beam. And what that one means is that if the vehicle recognizes your high beams are necessary, it'll turn them on automatically. If there's somebody oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. It's actually a really, really neat system, the way that it works. From here, you could toggle your lamps off, but honestly, I recommend just keeping yourself in the auto mode the majority of the time. You can still lock your high beams out by pushing away, flash them out as necessary. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. So you've got your just basic mist mode along the top. You can drop down 1 level and then also use the rocker here to say how fast or slow that auto level is going to be. And then you've got some of those hyper crazy modes. You can pull in towards you to get the wiper fluid going as well for the front. And then you've got a series of different options for the rear. So a few different intermittent levels you could push down in order to get your wiper fluid going for the rear as well. And then up this way as well. Straightforward to use it. And you've got paddle shifters inside of the rides. You've got your minus on the left-hand side with your plus on the right-hand side. If you want to walk through on how to actually use paddle shifters, check down in the description of this video, but it is really straightforward to do. Now, a few other things to point out. You've got along the right-hand side here your adaptive cruise control setup. So you could toggle the system on this way, and then as you start to cruise, you push down to set your speed. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time, or push and hold up to get to the nearest 5 or 0. There is also a distance indicator, so it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I want you to think of that one almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for how far you are away from the car in front of you. I normally recommend level 1 for residential streets, and then level 2, maybe 3 on highways and interstates, depending on your own personal comfort level. And then if you push and hold the gap adjustment button for 1 to 2 seconds, that's also going to put you into a traditional cruise control instead. There's also going to be a lane keeping system too. So it's not full hands-free driving, but what this system will do is, as long as it recognizes the lane markings, it's going to go green. And that's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. So if you lose focus for a brief second, you're going around a bend, it can keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. You do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel though, because after a few seconds, you'll get a little message letting you know that you've got to put your hands back on the wheel. So steering is required. But if you want to see the option of the adaptive cruise system used in person, check down in the description of this video for a live demonstration. You've got a series of options along the left side too. So this is going to let you change between songs, stations. So essentially all of your different presets that are available. If you also were on, let's say other side like AM, FM, even technically Sirius XM, you could do it. You could also do a push and hold in order for it to act as a seek button instead. But honestly, your best way to change the audio, tune to 97.7 FM.
Tuning to 97.7.
It's just using your voice instead. So you've got that flexibility. You can set up presets easily as well. But if you want to walk through on the infotainment, you'll find that down in the description of this video. There's a volume rocker here. There's a volume rocker there if you wanted to adjust. And then you've got a few other buttons. So you've got your voice command prompt. And then there's also going to be the button here to navigate through that part of the cluster, which I'll touch on in a second. On this voice command prompt, if you had your phone connected, so either Android or iPhone devices, if you do a longer push and hold, that's going to activate either your Siri or your Google Assistant instead. A short button push would always be for the factory assistant. Long button push and hold is for your voice assistant on your phone. And then going into the cluster screen here, So one thing to point out is that this is the hybrid version of the vehicle. So you've got your power gauges along the left. If you were in the regular gas version, the layout would be fairly identical. It's just that you wouldn't have these charge gauges. So I want you to think of this gauge like a traditional tachometer to a degree. So as you put your foot down to drive, you'll notice that this goes up. So it's how much power are you using? So it's essentially your RPM gauge. As you go to brake, depending on your level of braking, it's going to go down and it'll be green. So it's essentially going to use regenerative braking in order to try to recharge the battery. So to recharge as you're driving, but as you go to brake, it's going to try to recapture that energy in order to charge the battery up. You've got your EV mode there, your current time, vehicle is good to go, your current fuel level, what gear you're in, so whether you're in park, reverse, neutral, drive, low gear, whatever the case may be. So that shows up and you heard the beeping there. And you've also got what different systems are enabled. So if your lane centering system was turned on, if your adaptive cruise control system was turned on, etc., you'd have all of those icons showing up. You've got your current speed along the outside there. If the driver was plugged in as well, you've got your current speed, and then just your basic ready to go, your lamp modes, whether your lamps are on, off, etc., on top of that. And then you've also got this little rocker switch, which is going to give you the flexibility of adjusting what's showing up inside of that left part of the cluster. So if we hop into the very top here, so the no content is exactly that. So it's essentially just a blank screen. You could also push and hold again if you wanted to change out to kilometers, miles per hour that way. So you just do a push and hold that way to do it. So it's a nice simple flip. You can hit the home icon here in order to adjust your screen brightness. So if you find it too dark, you can adjust it out this way. Hopping down into our gauge settings gives us a few basic options here as well. So you could show off what is showing up inside of that screen. So as we navigate through, so it's what information do you want there? Things that are grayed out, you can't remove. So those are always going to be there, but you can adjust out the other gauges. So as we hop back and we jump, there. So we've got all of our different options that are showing up here. Different warnings are available, so nothing as of right now, but if warnings were available, it would show up. Your power gauge, because this is the hybrid, so that looks kind of neat. So you can see that the gas engine is started up, and it's essentially taking that energy, transferring it to the battery in order to charge us up a little bit. You've got your fuel and range, so you can see right here, economy has been pretty good. You can push and hold OK here as well, so just push in order to reset your trip counter. Straightforward. And then you can also slide up and down to go to your either trip A versus your trip B counter. You can see your current speed and your elapsed time for A versus B counter on top of that. Audio. So if you wanted to, you could then, once you're on audio, move up and down in order to change between your different sources. But honestly, like I said, if you're just going for AM, FM, or Sirius XM, just using your voice to adjust things out that way, I think is way easier to do. From here, you've got options for your phone if it was connected. Navigation, if your vehicle had it in there, would also show up. So you've got your basic compass view, but when you've got a route going, you'd also get your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the screen there. You could swipe down. If you had a home address set up inside of the infotainment system, you could go home, you could look at saved places, recent destinations if you've gone to different spots. Basics for driver attention. So it's currently disabled, but if you had it enabled and you start to veer over too many times into another lane without signaling, eventually that counter is going to go up and it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. You could see which wheel is getting which amount of power. Since this is the all-wheel drive version, you've got your front and back wheel showing. If you were just front wheel drive, those would be the only options showing up. Seatbelts, whether or not they're plugged in. So if it recognizes that there's weight on the seat, that would show up. Maintenance, so you've got your current oil life counter there. You can't reset it this way, that's done through the infotainment system. Safety, so you could also disable different safety options. So if you wanted to disable your road departure, so if you start to veer over into another lane without signaling and nudge you back into your lane. Blind spot system, so if somebody enters your blind spot, you'll get a notification along your side view mirror. And then just your basic warnings here. So the beeping that you get as you back up. If you wanted to disable all of these systems, you do have the flexibility to do it. And then just no content, so you just want nothing showing up there instead. So again, if you kind of like that more minimalistic design, you've got that flexibility. So I know that is a lot of information, but that's what you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Honda CR-V.